But like this will be the other. There's already people in the comments that are like, "But what about SXM? There's no consumer SXM. You're crazy. That's never gonna happen. Nobody wants that."
What's the most interesting to most people?
PCIe Gen 6 is here, and it is here in force, and it's not in the CPU. The first place that PCIe Gen 6 showed up is the connection between the networking and the GPU.
That's abnormal.
That is very abnormal. It is insanely abnormal.
Yeah.
You have optics packaged on chip. So it's on-chip photonics. I think the thing that's going to come to consumer is going to be the on-chip photonics.
Okay.
Because I think ultimately that's going to be way cheaper than all the stuff that we're doing here.
Wendell, 3 years ago, we had a video titled, "The Future is PCIe."
Yep.
And I have a question for you. Why is this video card a network adapter?
It's the A30X.
Okay.
And it's actually old, but everything old is new again. Like this is old technology because I can't lay hands on new technology. The network card has graphics processing capabilities, or there's a GPU in here, HBM2E. It's unfortunate because the market went a different way, and it makes more sense for the components that go into this, that went into this, to go into GPUs. And so like this has evolved. Like this is still Bluefield. Bluefield is still a thing, but Bluefield is a little different now.
Is the future still PCIe, or has the PCIe future arrived?
Everything has gotten so pushed together that PCIe is still the future, and how you spend your PCIe lanes has changed a little bit. But now PCIe is subsuming networking and is subsuming the communication channel, and it's like what we call Ethernet doesn't look a lot like Ethernet anymore. It looks more like PCIe.
Before that, this video is brought to you by Montech and the 10 micro ATX case. The 10 is launching for Montech's 10-year anniversary and goes heavy on the mesh ventilation with a fine mesh front, side panel, and even heavily ventilated rear exhaust for the case. The case is an open slate for fan positioning and airflow, and also advertises 9 power supply positions, 3 motherboard positions, and 7 GPU slots across modes, which makes the case highly reconfigurable, giving you the ability to build a unique micro ATX PC that gives more space than ITX, but doesn't take the footprint of ATX. Learn more at the link in the description below. Is this an overall positive trajectory, negative, relying on PCIe?
NVIDIA is setting the direction here for basically the whole industry, and the whole industry is going to follow suit. But it turns out that we need less overhead and less stuff in the way in the communication channels. And that is probably true no matter what kind of compute is happening.
Right.
But it's been interesting to me to watch how quickly things have risen and then how quickly they go away. So like this is 800 gigabits of optics. And so like this is a networking component.
This is an Intel device.
This is Ethernet. And the modern ones, like I did some data center tours, and the ones that I showed in the data center they're about $1,600 each.
Okay.
Give or take. And
I can't decide if that's expensive or not. I mean, from a consumer standpoint, yes. But what was the speed?
800 gigabit.
I mean, that seems
kind of fast.
Yeah.
And then there's also 1.6 terabit, which is the modern.
God.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so
what's the quick, if we do top level, what is each thing here? Why is it PCIe is the future?
So this thing lets you do compute really close to the networking and really close to the PCIe. So it's bringing them together. And bringing them together is the thing that we need to talk about in modern servers. This is Broadcom. This is a MUX. So this Broadcom controller will take 16 lanes of Gen 5 on one side and give you 32 lanes of Gen 5 on the other so that you can MUX things together. Our MikroTik switch, it's 400 gig Ethernet, but the thing that it does that most looks like PCIe is something called RDMA, Remote Direct Memory Access. And so there's plumbing in our insanely fast networking card to do RDMA, and there's plumbing in our insanely fast Kioxia storage to do RDMA. And so the GPU can access through a networking fabric, which looks a lot like PCIe when you look at it on the wire, direct storage.
What about these cards? We've got 3 of these.
So these are adapters. This will go from U.2, which is NVMe, which is PCIe, to a more familiar PCIe connector. And then this is the same thing for the E3 format. This is an E1 drive, so it's also compatible. but we also have E3, and this is what's in modern servers. And normally that would go into a backplane and not a PCIe card, but this is really just to illustrate that they're PCIe lanes. We also have the Dell version of the DGX Spark, so it's like AI, blah, blah, 128 gigs of memory, whatever. But the reason it's the reason this is a thing is because of the QSFP, which is the same, which is the same, which is the same. And this is a networking standard, but it's InfiniBand, which is a fabric technology, but also RDMA, and this is 200 gigabit. And so this lets you access local resources in another, like if you've got two of these, in another one of these, like as if it is local, even though it's in another node.
I have a lot of questions, but if we pick one thing to start, what's the most interesting to most people?
PCIe Gen 6 is here, and it is here in force, and it's not in the CPU. The first place that PCIe Gen 6 showed up is the connection between the networking and the GPU.
That's abnormal.
That is very abnormal. It is insanely abnormal.
Yeah.
So imagine a card like this, a Broadcom card, but imagine instead of like PCIe, this is PCIe Gen 5, and imagine the connections here were PCIe Gen 6. Mm-hmm. And so that's even more, we've doubled the bandwidth. If all of these PCIe lanes on this side try to communicate on that side, there's going to be a log jam. It's only going to run at half speed. So imagine PCIe Gen 6, twice the lanes at twice the speed. We're now at a 4x disadvantage back to the CPU. Mm-hmm. But that is exactly where we are with GPUs in modern GPU servers. The GPUs communicate with each other at PCIe Gen 6 speeds with 16 lanes, and they communicate to the networking with PCIe Gen 6. And the networking is 800 gigabit or 1.6 terabit.
And is that over PCIe as well, the networking? Okay. Any idea of the lane count for that?
It's 1.6 terabit. And
so whatever that is.
Yeah, once it goes into a connector like this, it'll become 1.6 terabit. And so it becomes more networking standard than PCIe standard. But the thing that comes after this actually does away with the optic. You have optics packaged on chip. So it's on chip photonics.
So before going further into that, interesting thing to me is historically on the consumer side, we do get sometimes GPUs where it's a newer PCIe generation that is available on current consumer motherboards.
That is where we are now.
Right. And
have been for a year.
And whenever that happens, it's just a compatibility thing of making sure normal people buying a GPU understand, first of all, they can't really saturate the speeds anyway, but if they could saturate the bandwidth of it, that you're not going to be able to get PCIe Gen whatever if the CPU is -1 generation.
Right.
In a typical use case. That's obviously different here for what you're talking about with the enterprise solutions GPU to network.
Yep.
Do you see that coming to consumer in any capacity? Like, do they play around with this in enterprise world for a while and eventually go, you know what, maybe we don't need the newest generation?
I think the thing that's going to come to consumer is going to be the on-chip photonics.
Okay.
Because I think ultimately that's going to be way cheaper than all the stuff that we're doing here. Because there are Herculean amounts of effort that go into signal integrity, even at Gen 5.
Right.
But if you could just have a cheap optical connection from one peripheral to another peripheral, I think that's where it shows up in consumer stuff first.
Well, in Gen 5, you saw that happen, the impact from signal integrity and isolation in motherboards and motherboard prices, where they typically went with more layers and denser boards. So for on-chip photonics, what does that mean in the current enterprise use case? What actually is that?
Right now, the way that it's all prototypes, and some of it is not super public knowledge yet. But imagine a large backplane that your GPUs all slot into with PCIe, but the backplane has the networking fabric on it. Like normally, it's like we've got a network card and a GPU, and a network card and a GPU, and a network card and a GPU, and we've got the PCIe backplane that's doing the work. Where we are now is there's a PCIe Gen 6 chipset that also includes networking, and there's one port per PCIe slot. So GPU, and it has its own NIC. GPU, and it has its own NIC. GPU, and it has its own NIC. But this fabric is fully interconnected. So all of the 8 GPUs in say, this hypothetical chassis all connect to each other with PCIe 64 gigabytes per second. But each one of those GPUs has its own 800 gigabit or 1.6 terabit network interface. That puts it on a fabric. And that connection, right now it's QSFP, so let's say 800 gigabit or whatever. That would go to a top of rack switch, and the top of rack switch takes it to you build a cluster out of that. So this one chassis with 8 GPUs, we might have 4 of those in a rack, and then we might have 1,000 racks, and everything is all interconnected to everything else. For silicon photonics, you're still going to have that external connection to go out of the chassis, but it's built into the silicon that is managing the fabric.
Okay.
So instead of having a discrete laser, like there's a laser in here, you don't have that. The silicon itself emits the photons and goes into a system where there's a couple lasers in the thing for amplification, but there's not one laser per connection. Like the box itself has like 2 or 4 lasers, and the switching is happening optically instead of electrically.
Right. So primary advantage, I guess, speed and latency.
Lower latency, less translation, because like we're going like look at this madness. It's like electrical signal, optical signal, other end, optical signal, back to an electrical signal, and then you've got one of those per GPU.
Right.
What if you do away with all that? You save a ton of power, overhead, latency, and then immediately you can take all that power and dump it back into GPUs because the GPUs demand power.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Yeah.
What so then on consumer, I asked what you saw coming to consumer, and you said maybe that before.
Yeah, so Kioxia did a really amazing demo of an optical interface for NVMe, and it was faster and lower overhead, and it was running a PCIe Gen 5. And so imagine a drive that has a simple, noiseless, like, boop, and you get, just a couple pins for power, and an optical connection like this, and then your NVMe, there's no more AER errors, there's no more device glitches or hiccups, there's no more like sleep-wake, all of that stuff goes away.
Okay.
It's also absurdly low power. So like if you had a laptop that had a high-speed storage and you were using an optical interconnect, it's going to generate less heat and it's going to use way less power.
So why was this significant?
Oh, this is just fanning your lanes out. So you can have slower lanes on this side and faster lanes on this side, or you go from 16 to 32.
And what was the connector on this?
MCIO.
MCIO?
Yep.
This has got 4, I
Yeah,
guess.
each one of these is 8 PCIe lanes.
Right.
So you have 32 lanes that you can use to connect to peripherals and 16 lanes back to the host. And incidentally, like if you're running slower peripherals, like if you want to run PCIe Gen 4, this works perfectly. The bandwidth works perfectly here. You can run 32 lanes of Gen 4 with full bandwidth into a PCIe Gen 5 host.
This is PCIe. Is this awful or not awful?
It depends on the problem you're trying to solve.
Yeah.
So this is the thing that's popped up in our winter of discontent of availability.
Okay.
And this is like a year ago or 2 years ago, nobody would have wanted this because of performance reasons. And so
I think people made fun of it.
Yeah. This is an accessory that's been bundled with ASRock motherboards, and this is 4 PCIe lanes down here, and then you get 1, 2, 3, 4 slots here. So this is bottleneck city. But people might have 256 or 512 gigabyte M.2 laying around, and this is a way that you can connect your old storage in a computer and then maybe have more storage that's NVMe without having to buy anything.
Right. Yeah. It's kind of like people adapting SODIMMs into DDR5 desktop.
We're bifurcating 4 lanes into 4 one-lane devices. And so this is only going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 gigabytes per second for PCIe Gen 3, or 8 gigabytes per second, 2, 4, 6, 8 for PCIe Gen 4. So the fastest you'll get on this M.2 connection is 2 gigabytes per second. Right. But for a Steam library, maybe that's okay.
Yeah, especially if you're pulling some old retired storage, 250, like you said, 256 gigabyte off a shelf.
And this kind of thing, like this is a prototype from ICDoc. This is an E3 adapter, and so I've got a Solidigm E1 E1 SSD in here, and so just quick release.
So would you use this in, like, say, a consumer device if you were to buy, like this? This is more enterprise grade gear.
It's enterprise storage, but you might use that in, say, like a Threadripper workstation.
Yeah. Does this stuff ever? I guess Is this at a point where it's ending up, say, secondhand or on eBay or whatever?
No, probably another year or two.
Okay. So, and that's maybe, we can get into this topic too. So one of the things I've seen a lot of with the RAM pricing situation is I've noticed that there's comments where people say, yeah, but secondhand is going to be awesome in a few years. And like, there's a few points on that where for some things, yes. For I think the thing people want, no.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the memory is LPDDR5 or 5X. It's either soldered to a board or it's like an abnormal CAM module that's specific to the server. And so that's not going to help you for your desktop computer. And the GPUs, the HBM that's for the GPUs is all attached to the GPUs, and like none of that memory is salvageable for consumer. What about stuff like this, though? I mean, does this have a place?
Eminently usable. If there was tons of that available at surplus or retail, not a problem. We would see mass production of stuff like this.
Because, like, you know, what I really liked was the era of, like, say, X99 or X79, to some extent X58, but where you would get this just like dump of old Xeon processors for really cheap. And as a consumer, it was like sometimes you could buy that stuff for cheaper than equivalently performing modern consumer CPUs and boards. And that was always fun because it felt like this secret, you know, and so I guess I'm looking for, is that going to exist and for what category of device?
I think a lot of people would say no, and there are some really fair arguments for no, but let me give you some hope for yes.
Okay. Hit me with the hopium.
Right now, that's happening a little bit with Zen 3 because a lot of places are retiring Zen 3 based EPYC CPUs, and those are fantastic. Like small business, medium business used Zen 3, it is fantastic. It gets the job done, you can count on it, the boards are reliable, boards are available, it's fantastic. The other thing that I would look at is there are a ton of Chinese suppliers, and we should embrace the same kind of thing in America, but there's a ton of Chinese suppliers that are taking the boards that have things soldered on them and they're reworking them. And that sounds insane, but if you look at like the Intel X540, this is a problematic 10 gigabit Ethernet chipset. It is actually terrible. It is literal garbage. But there are Chinese e-waste manufacturers that have gone through the trouble of desoldering a BGA from motherboards and proprietary equipment and all kinds of crazy stuff, and they're repackaging that on PCI Express.
The reason that doesn't happen in the U.S. is normally licensing, right? You tend to need a license to get the chipset and the hardware. And
I think we should make it federally okay. Like if you are pulling chips off of something else and you're mounting it on your own thing, that is always okay. It's under the right to repair banner.
Yeah, it's not really. It's kind of like, I mean, I bought this thing, right? Yeah. Like, why should I care? I didn't agree to Intel's thing. It was the guy who sold it to me who did. Yeah.
So instead, we have this crazy situation where folks like us are ordering from overseas where that's not a problem, and it's like, yes, I can limp along with my poorly manufactured X540. Broadcom has taken a very I think draconian stance on the same kind of thing. A lot of the Broadcom chipsets the supply chain is very carefully controlled. But there are older Broadcom chipsets that are perfectly reasonable, and there's a lot of profit to be had in reworking Broadcom stuff that you've pulled from old servers or old whatever, and that is a board level pull. Like it does require desoldering, and it does require a lot of creative thinking, and that is still usable. And so like right now, you know, if we were in a future where like H100s were at surplus, like NVIDIA H100s, and it's like, or like the GH100s where you got Grace and Hopper and blah, blah, blah. It is, yes, right now, today, there is not a lot of utility.
There's no value there for a normal end user.
Right.
Like,
But if you had an easy way to get that CPU up and running, that'd be a perfectly viable ARM CPU 5 years from now.
Right.
Totally okay. And 512 gigs of memory, if you didn't have to do a lot of rework for the board, probably that's going to be fine.
Yeah.
And that would be like a fun, useful ARM system to be able to do that and rework it. And there are
just like home server or whatever, high-end home server type of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, that market kind of exists and has existed for a while, especially motherboards in China. So some of the most interesting boards we bought were like, at one point I got a dual X79 board that came from a brand that was harvesting chipsets and sockets and things. Yeah. And then they were just building it custom, basically.
Yeah, I forgot about those, but there are right now today a lot of X79 and X99 boards that you can buy that have better CPU compatibilities than their older contemporaries.
Yeah.
And so things like that can happen with the data center stuff, especially like if the economics get really bad and like there's no manufacturing of new stuff, there's going to be a lot of economic pressure to make those things work.
Yeah, you may also have, especially with like demand collapse situations, like we're starting to see, I saw news this morning about in China at least, the 9070 XTs are now falling below MSRP.
Yeah.
Which is because they were so elevated for so long that everyone said, fuck this, I don't want it. And so anyway, in those types of situations, the harvesting's pretty interesting because there's like an alley I've been to in Shenzhen. It's a long time ago now. So probably like 8 years ago, there was an alley where they will desolder like iPhone components, motherboard components from e-waste or DOA, like prior Intel and AMD boards, bin them all out into different plastic buckets, and then that goes and turns into like whatever the dual X79 Huaninger like motherboard, right? So,
I've got a really good example. Hang on, let me grab it.
You can follow.
It's just dead, but like this will be the other. There's already people in the comments that are like, "But what about SXM? There's no consumer SXM. You're crazy. That's never gonna happen. Nobody wants that."
So what is this that you've pulled out?
So this is an MI300. It's dead. It's dead, Jim. This is a common format. This is AMD's version. NVIDIA has a version of this as well. And so there's a carrier board that normally would have 8 of these. This is PCIe and power. Again, PCIe is fungible. It's all about PCIe. This thing slaps down into the carrier, and then there's a big ass heatsink here that'll dissipate 600 to 1,000 watts of heat. Yeah. So like, these designs really are designed for, you have 600 watts of thermal energy.
Is this the IHS?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So, where were you going with the SXM? What was the?
Oh, there's not a consumer.
Yeah.
There's not a consumer option for SXM.
Right.
NVIDIA is releasing the DGX Station, which is one argument against that. But the second argument against that is in China, a lot of innovative things.
Yeah.
You can buy carrier cards that have MCIO connections that go to this Broadcom adapter, and so I can use this to plug that into any modern machine, assuming that I can cool it.
Wait, so is the idea that you're instead of socketing this into something with the pins on the back, you're plugging in through MCIO into a card? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay, that seems weird.
Yeah,
Cool.
it's super weird, but it's doable.
How's any idea bandwidth limitations?
No,
anything?
there's none. There's no
Cool.
the carrier card
Neat.
carries out all the lanes. You can run it 8 lanes. Like if you only connect one of these, it'll run at 8 lanes. But if you connect both, you can run it at the full 16 lanes.
Does it have its own power connector?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, you got to supply.
So they would have a power connector on it. They would attach MCIO and power, I guess. Plug in power, run MCI to a card like this.
Yep.
And then you just have a GPU kind of floating, and you secure it in your chassis and shove a heatsink on it.
The chassis is the most solvable problem of all of those problems.
Yeah, especially in China. It's like, you want a metal factory?
Yeah.
We got a metal factory.
The thing that blows my mind, though, is that that has actually already become so prevalent with V100s, because the V100 has a similar kind of interface as this. And V100 is old, like MI300 is still like, if it worked, like you could make money on that. It's crazy.
Right.
But the V100s are kind of like, and old, and you don't want to deal with it. But there are so many V100s available at surplus that are 32 gigs max, 16. There's 16 or 32 gigs. There's other configurations that I'm aware of. There's so many of those available, and you can still get a lot of work done with them. It's like, I need a 4 V100 rig. That'll give you 64 gigs of VRAM. And there's so much demand for that in an AI context that you have these cottage industry people that are building the carrier boards for that, which is way outside the enterprise, but that still gives you a way to have a 64 gig system that's under $2,000.
And for anyone who's on the non-AI side too, we used V100s for video editing machines for years, for like a couple of years, because we had come into possession of them. I didn't go out and buy them for that, but they were great at it, you know.
Scientists and researchers that need floating point 64, V100 is still incredibly capable for floating point 64 compared to the other things that are available for floating point 64.
Right.
So like if you're a PhD at a university and it's like, here is your machine that has 4 V100s, you're gonna be really happy.
Right. Yeah, I think we were running, for a while we were running 2 V100s in a rendering machine.
Yeah.
And yeah, they were good for that. So maybe there's, in some places like that, maybe there's some secondhand, like consumer.
Secondhand hope.
Yeah. Wendell, I'm looking for anything. It's I know that it's kind of like I wouldn't advise you to come to me for optimism. But,
it do be like that.
But it's the other way around also. So I feel like between the two of us, if we can find one positive thing, that's like really positive.
The next evolution of PCIe is probably going to be optical. And we're already seeing PCIe like phone chips and microcontrollers and like the next big like Arduino or Raspberry Pi. Raspberry Pi is leaning into more PCIe lanes.
I don't know a lot about Raspberry Pi, but I saw they've gotten a lot more expensive lately.
Yeah, memory and everything else.
Right.
But aside from that.
But they're going more PCIe?
Yeah, and more PCIe connectivity. And PCIe was originally designed as a server-to-server interconnect. And so it is finally completing, like closing the loop on the promise of what it was. But it's also evolving. So like PCIe is getting features that make it work better with RDMA, that make it work better with Ethernet, that make it work better with like converged.
Yeah, I guess what I'm hearing is the sort of most immediate future normal people uses, meaning like not a data center or a business or something, is probably something like, well, in storage, PCIe continues to be beneficial. Networking, it sounds like stuff like this, where
lower cost, faster interface.
Right, and you know you're getting higher end with that, but it sounds like the networking gear in particular is becoming more affordable than it has been for the speed that you get.
Yeah, I think that I'm always chastising people on our forum. Like we joked about it years ago. I was like, 10 gig is too slow. But now we really are to a point where between the like data center explosion and everything else, 10 gig really is just like, should be like the bog standard. 100 gigabit is cheap, super cheap.
To manufacture, you mean?
Yeah.
So networking sounding like it's getting some promising sort of fallout from from the enterprise expansion. Storage is as well. This, to me, the most interesting thing you've told me today is taking stuff like this and turning it into just an extra, like a floating GPU, basically.
Yeah, it's just on a board, and then you got the tall heat sinks, and it's like it just is its own carrier, basically. And you got a tower heat sink and a lot of fans.
Going back to the viewer comment of, well, but this is going to be great for the future, even though it's bad now. Like, if everyone's getting terabytes of memory, then in 3 to 5 years when they retire, the data centers retire these devices, surely that will benefit consumers. And again, a lot of that is like soldered to boards or in incompatible formats. And what it might do is maybe it ends up in China and they'll desolder it from the boards just like we're talking about here, and they'll put it on, they'll turn 5090s into 128 gigabyte 5090s or whatever.
But why don't we have that here? Like, is it a policy and societal failing that there are legal problems with, I got this junk surplus server,
literally garbage,
I can't desolder the crap from it and solder it onto something else? That seems like that should not be a problem.
I mean, the fact that we did a PS5 jailbreak video where all we did was install Linux on it, and I have to talk to a lawyer to say what's my exposure, right? Like I own that PS5 and we're not pirating anything with it. This shouldn't be a thing we have to worry about.
It was a thing Sony historically allowed in the PS3.
Yeah.
Like, they set the precedent. I should be able to do this.
Well, and not only that, there was a class action settlement I saw at one point where they paid out specifically for blocking Linux installations.
They took a feature away.
Yeah. So anyway, like point being, yes, I think to answer your question, I think it's a societal failure. Like, it's
fabulous.
It's one of those, like, when the data center throws it in the trash, if someone takes it out and desolders it and puts it on something else, they're going, no, wait, that's my trash.
You're not allowed to benefit from the trash. See also the UK. That's already, it's like, oh, they benefit from the trash in the UK, straight to jail.
You got a license for that trash?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yes, so the future Still PCIe in your review.
The future is still PCIe, and having PCIe as an interconnect will also simplify the networking eventually, probably. For now, I'll just have to be happy with my $6 100 gigabit optics.
These?
Yeah. $6!
Yes. I don't know if maybe that's our closing point. Can you explain the significance?
This is for your interface. These are $6. So like, if you have a 100 gigabit network card, you can, put two of these together with a cheap optical cable, and then you've got a 100 gig connection from here to there, and you don't need to switch for that. So like, if you have a file server, and it's like, I just want my computer to connect to my NAS really fast, you can do 200 gig NICs and two of these $6 adapters and a $4 cable, and you're good.
So a couple quick ones for you then, from perspective of a consumer enthusiast user at home. If you're telling me we can get 100 gig, even if it costs the same, I guess my natural reaction is like, my drives aren't that fast.
It's 10 gigabytes a second. I mean, your array might be that fast.
Right, yeah.
So you could copy from a Gen 5 drive to a storage array that's made of flash, and it'll be close to native.
Sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Right. Is there any impact to latency in these types of, like if you have a
the latency's a little worse.
Okay.
But because the latency is a little worse is why Enterprise is doing what they're doing to try to drive that down. But that also moves all that stuff a lot closer to just a native PCIe connection.
Right.
The thing that is going to get fixed with some immediacy in Linux, I think, is the RDMA thing.
Okay.
Because the RDMA plumbing in Linux is very lackluster IMHO for common use cases. There are niche use cases where RDMA on Linux works great. But I think that everyman use cases for RDMA. Like even people with 10 gigabit should be enjoying RDMA. It's 2026, there is no excuse.
Right.
And it's amazing how much the software protocol and the software interface is now dovetailing with like the future of the PCIe interface. Was
there anything significant with this?
That is Intel's 25 gig. So like we got the Intel Optics, and this is also Intel's dual 25 gig adapter. This is Minis Forum's implementation.
Part of what kept Intel alive for a couple years, I guess?
Yeah. The E810 is a great, affordable 25 gig chipset, and that is like a $200 network card. And it might seem a little weird because on eBay you can typically find an older Mellanox 100 gig card for $50 to $100. And so it's like, why is this one that's only 2 times 25 gig, 50 gig, $200? And it's because it's new. It's new chipset, new plumbing, better drivers, better support in the Linux kernel. Mellanox ConnectX 4 and 5 are basically abandoned at this point. They happen to work, but at some point in the future they stop working or get flaky. No one's going to care.
Right.
Whereas this is probably going to be supported for a long time. And it's well documented by Intel.
Also noticed their clever access hole TM.
I did that with the drill press.
You did that?
With the drill press.
Funny, okay. Because I was looking at it like, is this just to access the screw?
Yeah. So
okay,
I can change it between short and tall.
Because I like that because disassembling a whole device to get access to a screw inside sucks.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, I guess it's a compliment to you, but unfortunately, they did not think it through as much as I thought they did.
No. Yeah.
So I was really excited for a second that the manufacturer did that. But
that's why the hole looks like hell. That was me. I did that.
I'm going to be honest. I was going to comment on that because I thought a factory did that. But now that I know you did it, it's pretty good. I was looking at it like, I think the factory did that after the fact.
Yeah.
Turns out you are the factory.
Yeah. I did buy 5 of those.
Right.
So, because it was a really good, this is what we're using internally now, because we had some like Mellanox ConnectX 3s and 4s. And the 3s got too flaky, and so this is what I replaced them with.
Very cool. So overall, you're optimistic on the future of PCIe.
Yeah, and I'm somewhat optimistic that we, the people, will be able to recycle enterprise gear
in some capacity
a little more readily than most people realize. Because like V100s are still like, I would love to get my hands on trays and trays of V100s. There are a lot of needy academics and would-be PhD students, they don't have their PhD yet, that are like, yes, if you can, like, I will be more than happy to run a pile of wires on a circuit board if it means I've got my own personal, 4X V100 system.
Right.
And that's hugely useful to them.
That makes sense. Very cool. So that'll be the update we've done. This is now our 3rd installment of some form of the future is PCIe. And it is, each time it gets more interesting. I mean, last time you brought me I called it a RAM video card, because it was RAM socketed. This might be interesting for any of you who missed it, may be interesting, but RAM socketed into a card, socketed into, was it a PCIe slot?
It was CXL,
That's
technically.
right, yeah.
And CXL is a part of this. This thing has support for some of the CXL protocol in hardware a little bit. Now, MikroTik hasn't dotted all the I's and crossed all the T's with that, but the chipset that they used is aware of the transactions that you need for like having a far away memory device.
Right.
And that is also another place where it's like, oh, this is actually going to be useful in that kind of a context, because you can have remote memory, you can have more tiers of memory. So you can have a little bit of expensive memory and then a bunch more of like the commodity memory. Like this Bluefield, how Bluefield looks today, and this edition of Bluefield is way different because of the economic pressure of the components that went into this. This product competes with GPUs, so it has to change and suffer a little bit because it's HBM2. This one's HBM2E.
Right.
So it's a little different in this era than it is now.
Yeah, well, DPUs, or Bluefield, also increased the memory capacity somewhat substantially on the newest, on the Vera Rubin edition, from what I remember. One, I forget what it was, but it increased a lot. And that was another place where people don't realize what memory is going, where it's like, it's not just the HBM, which has a disproportionately high usage of DRAM because the yield, if you have a failure, it's way worse. You might lose 4 times as much. But then also memory usage in the DPUs and memory usage for the CPU itself, of course. And there may be some other miscellaneous small components that can use some amount of memory. So
but it is a much better situation for consumers and the universe of all these devices, because in the past, if we were in a situation where we needed an absurdly high-speed interconnect between all of these devices like you're talking about, we wouldn't have leaned on PCIe. Instead,
bunch of proprietary shit?
Exactly,
Okay.
And that is way less useful for the future. Like, look at all the proprietary interface stuff that retro collectors have, and it's like, oh, this is, but then it was dead-end technology and nothing. Meanwhile, here it's like, no, we need open compute, and we need the PCIe standards bodies to get their crap together so we can move on to like PCIe Gen 7 and 8.
So what I'm hearing is, when the companies realized that if they work together against the consumers, that's beneficial. If they realize, like, wait a minute, what if instead of competing with each other and trying to make open standards that benefit consumers, what if we work with each other to make open standards for ourselves?
and it's the only option.
And then we don't sell anything to consumers.
Yeah, if you want to look at it that way, it's like optical PCIe is coming to consumer because there's literally no other technology. And it will come at any price.
Yeah, that is another way to look at it. And on that note, I've ruined it. You can check out Level 1 Techs on YouTube. We'll link that below. And we have plenty of other videos, including some in the past, talking about stuff like this. So, Wendell, thanks for joining.
Oh, no, it's been amazing. It's always fun. PCIe, woo!
We'll see you all next time.